Well, what's up, everybody? This is, what are we at? Episode 13?
13.
13.
Lucky 13.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So we're super excited today. We just finished up our Yukon grand opening event. Super successful day, super good time. Thanks to everybody who showed up today. It was really cool, especially for a store that hasn't been around for super long. To pull that many people to come out and kind of support, it was pretty neat. So we've got a good friend of ours, Brian Teach here from Phorm. What is your official title at Phorm? I make it up every time I talk about you.
Yeah, I don't think I have a title.
Yeah.
I don't know. Guy whose office is over there.
Yeah, right. Been around for a while. How long have you worked at Phorm?
11 years.
Dang, man, that's crazy.
Rolling.
Yeah, no kidding. So we've known Brian for a long time, way back into Kevin and I's S2 days back in the day. And so, yeah, we're excited to kick off. We're doing outside, so we're going to do some cigars. And Brian brought us some pretty cool stuff here. So we got some tequila that looks expensive and tasty, and I'm very excited for that.
Yeah, treats.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Some treats.
Yeah, I had someone asking earlier at the event today. They were like, yeah, that Brian guy, he's like an OG Phorm guy. And this person knew like our past was with Supplement Superstores and everybody. And I was like, yeah, he was working there before Thomas or I were working there. So
yeah. Isn't that funny to think that that's like a long time ago now?
It was a long time ago.
I know.
We're getting old, guys. I don't know if you know that.
Oh, golly. Because, yeah, we've been Triad's been open for, we're 7 years, right?
over 7, yeah.
Over 7 years. So we're into would that be considered into our eighth
year?
Yeah, 8th year. That's bananas. That's so crazy. So, man, yeah. Yeah, and we were at S2 for a couple years before that.
It doesn't feel like that long ago.
No, definitely doesn't. So, bleh.
I'm looking forward to see a little more gray in your guys' like beards and hair, hopefully in the near
Kevin's
future.
getting it. Kevin's getting those sideburns.
Just a little more.
Yeah, we our managers group that doesn't have Kevin, so just stuff that we deal with before it ever gets to him. It's called Kevin has gray sideburns, and so it's just we're trying to keep him from graying more and more on a daily basis. So
I think I started getting gray hairs our first year of business, and since then, and it's gotten less stressful, and I have gotten less gray hairs. There's a direct correlation.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Well, so what are we drinking today? What do we got going on here?
So we have El Trago, which is one of the spirits that the guys and I make. Translates to the drink. It's actually not a tequila. It's an agave spirit. So
cool.
It's made from Espadina, which is the Blue Weber agave parent plant. Just gives it a little bit different flavor. This one is extra añejo, so 40 months in a American white oak.
That's awesome.
Bourbon barrel.
What is and I think I know, but I'm probably wrong. What is the difference between an agave spirit and an actual tequila? Is it where it's made, or
has to do with where it is made?
Mhm.
Yep, and the type of agave that it's made from. So tequila has to be made in a certain part of Mexico.
That makes sense.
Has to be made from Blue Weber.
Gotcha. For anybody who doesn't know as well, Teach here is an owner in what's the actual brand name? Una Vida is the actual brand name.
One Life Spirits.
Yeah. So Una Vida, awesome stuff. We drink it on the regular. And if you're in Oklahoma City and you're at Chicken and Pickle, they have it there, and we drink through their supply pretty much every time we go. So,
or if you're an Oklahoma City liquor store owner, maybe pick up some Una Vida.
Yeah, there we go. That's what I'm talking about. It's seriously, it's some of our favorite stuff. So I know we drank a ton of it, and it is awesome when we go to Chicken and Pickle because they do have it, and it is what we drink. Just Una Vida on the rocks.
Too much of it.
Yeah, it's a great time though.
There's a picture of Thomas. No, it was me and Trace grabbing Thomas's ass the last time we were there.
A little too much Una Vida to do that.
Yeah. So yeah, we introduced you as Brian Teach with Phorm, which obviously you've been with Phorm for a long time, and that's kind of our more professional relationship with you because we carry Phorm in the store. But you're really Brian Teach with Una Vida. Brian Teach with is this under the Una Vida brand, the cigars?
So it's the same group of guys, Vida Nova, and it's which is One Life again in Latin, and we just came out with 3 cigars and try and see what that looks like.
Yeah.
Just have all the vices.
Why not? Well, man, I can tell you that, like, I'm a huge fan of the branding. Like, everything looks super slick on it. Like, the bottle looks great. The box for the cigars looks great. Like, you guys have done a really good job. Like, it is very legit. It's super cool.
Well, it's all about, branding is about telling a story. And I think, whether it's cigars or tequila or, people have some connotations or they don't maybe have the best memory or experience in a certain scenario. So if we can kind of change that, then
Amen.
A lot of times you can change the way people think about that brand or even that group of products.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
They become fans of yours then because you were the one who changed the direction of their thought processes.
For sure. Well, that makes sense, because I especially think, like, everybody goes through college and you get that, like, oh, tequila shots kind of thing.
Right.
And it wasn't really until after Kevin and I started kind of really diving into, like, the bourbon and whiskey scene. I remember I had taken a trip to, I know we talked about this before, but I had taken a trip to Canada of all places, which is really funny, but I'd taken a trip to Canada and we had gone to dinner one night and the owner of the restaurant was friends with the people that we were visiting with, and he just kept bringing out, like, sipping tequila. And I remember, like, sipping tequila and, like, I'd been drinking like 100+ proof whiskey for months, and I, like, took a sip of, like, good tequila and I was like, oh man, like, this is delicious. Like, this is something else. If you can get into it, it is a super, super delicious route of sipping alcohol. And the thing is, but yeah, you have that connotation sometimes of just being like tequila shots in college and you're like, ugh. And it's like, no, this is a whole different game. Like, this is like, you don't want to shoot this. You want to sip and enjoy and, like, notice the differences in the flavors and the palate that you get from it.
College, you were probably drinking more grain alcohol than anything.
1,000%.
I didn't realize that until later on, that a lot of, like, tequilas on the market are just, they can technically be a tequila if they're only 20% agave, but they could be just 80% grain alcohol.
Yeah, right.
That's nuts.
Like the golds, you're usually, like, just food coloring that wasn't aged in anything. So it's,
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. My bottles that I had in college just said tequila in black writing on a white label. So I don't know. It's a plastic jug. I think it was a half gallon. So it's good stuff.
Did you sip on that?
Yeah. Yes, still got some. I'll bring it. We are notorious for talking and not getting drinking. So I am going to, Kevin, do you want to do the honors? Teach, you want to do the honors? We can.
Oh, go ahead.
Perfect.
That's an interesting box done wrap. So I'll be entertained.
I will too. Go ahead, Kevin.
I'll try it.
So kind of while he's doing that, Teach, I'll ask you, what kind of got you into this? What was was it tequila in general, or was it just looking for a new venture, or what kind of got you into this?
So really, one of the partners, Zach, still comes to Summer Smash, but he would come to Summer Smash with, at the time, a different brand. And early on, he had kind of changed my opinion, just as we just spoke about tequila, by having the brand that he was currently selling at that time. And it really just kind of changed my mind. And we became friends. And through that process, I got to learn a lot about his business and what he knew. We were both kind of early on salesmen.
Sure.
So sharing our wins, sharing our losses, trying to, figure out how to do things different.
Sure.
Networking, all that kind of thing. And, one day he called me and he was like, man, you're not going to believe this, but I think the company that I'm working for, they're going to sell.
Oh, wow.
And he had a bunch of sweat equity, but didn't really have anything anywhere else to go.
Sure.
So after, talking him off the ledge and having some conversations with him.
Yeah, don't do that. Okay.
I told him, like, man, you should just start your own tequila business.
Yeah.
He's like, I can't do that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, why not?
Yeah.
You already have the relationship with the distilleries. You already have a relationship with
it's a beautiful bottle. That looks
all
awesome.
of the distributors and all the end consumers.
Right.
Like, all the right people.
Sure.
You just got to pull the trigger and do it. Oh, I can't do that.
Yeah.
And I think that is a lot of business, right? Sometimes people don't ever get into business because they are concerned or they're scared, right?
even when they have all the tools.
That's right.
Right.
Sometimes I always question whether people are in business despite themselves or in spite of themselves.
Yeah,
right.
right.
And this is one of those scenarios where he had some fear.
Yeah.
But, he could go into business in spite of himself because he had a lot of relationships. He just needed somebody to kind of push him into it a little bit further. And
absolutely,
lo and behold, here we are.
Yeah.
Right, a couple of different brands. And
that's so cool. That's such a cool deal. And I wonder, and I just apply this to my own life too, of, and maybe this doesn't, maybe this doesn't, but I know, like, even just firsthand seeing like the success we've seen with Tried and Defined Nutrition, it makes the idea of being a business owner less scary to me, right?
Yep.
Like, it makes the idea of like, oh, sometimes like, no, like you've got everything you need to be successful. You just got to go and do it. And I think when people maybe aren't as, exposed to that, maybe I can understand where it's like, you see what it is to take a loan out and you see, or whatever that looks like, and it starts to become really scary. But it's like, I'm sure through your years of seeing, First Phorm and S2 and all these companies grow, you see that it's just guys like us just doing it. You know what I mean? And it's just like, it's like, I think we're all special people, but it doesn't take like somebody that like doesn't exist in order to make this kind of stuff works. It can be you and your friends and people who work hard and like people with the right mindset. And it's it's now, looking back, like, and I say this as if like my name's on all the loans, and it's definitely not, but like, it's one of those things where I'm sure Kevin can attest to, like, taking a loan out now is a whole lot less scary than it was the first time.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, you can just kind of like, oh, okay. Like, sure, there's a lot that goes into it, and not to oversimplify it, but it's like, it's also like the first time you do it, you're like, shaking as you sign on the dotted line.
Oh yeah. And I think, for us, like, or for me personally, First Phorm was a pretty long way away from a startup when I joined it, but still have always treated it like it's my own company and try to, want to do the right thing and be financially responsible, fiscally responsible on every decision that's made. But from the outside in, it's always easy to just be like, hey, you should do that. I mean, I can't tell you how many conversations Kevin and I had. They're like, hey, when's store 2 coming?
Yeah.
Hey, where's store 2?
Yeah.
How about store 2? When you going to open store 2? How soon store 2?
Right. Exactly.
Now I'm like, okay, cool. Store 3, when's store 4?
Yeah.
I'll just keep doing it. Right.
Right.
And,
exactly.
Hopefully everybody has some people in their corner that kind of push them in that direction. And
I need that.
Always want to see, more, because when you have something, and from the outside looking in, when you see somebody that has something that is successful and, they're definitely good at what they do and passionate about it, it's like, man, I want more of that for them.
Yeah.
Let's keep going.
Well, and I think especially coming from you and somebody who I know, Kevin and I, we deem you as a very successful person in life and all the things that you've done. You live a very cool life. You're involved in a lot of super cool things. When we hear things like that from you, you've had that conversation with me too. Oh, when's store 2? When's store 2? When's store 3? Hearing it coming from somebody like you, I know always packs an extra punch for me, where it's like, if it's somebody who I respect and somebody who has been successful in their own line of what they're doing, when they're doing that, like, positive pushing affirmation kind of thing, it's like that's definitely a step of like really believing in yourself as well, of like, oh yeah, like, oh shit, we can do this, like, we just got to keep going.
Yeah. And I think it's understanding that, obviously there's going to be obstacles,
sure,
but that, you figured out how to get past the obstacles, like, that's not, as soon as you're aware that no matter what problem comes up, you can get past it, then kind of the fear thing goes away a little bit. No different than that first loan, right? Like, once you understand the loan and what it takes to pay it, what it's going to take to fulfill it and make everybody happy in the scenario, you're like, all right, I can do that again.
Yeah. Right.
I think the one thing that really kind of helped us is we were young and dumb and had nothing to lose when we got that first
Now we're
loan.
old and dumb.
Yeah. Like, looking back on it, I was like, gosh, that was so risky. Like, we knew nothing. Like, we thought we knew a lot, and we knew some. But looking back on it, it's like, man, we didn't know nearly enough. We weren't nearly prepared enough. If we knew what we knew now, we probably wouldn't have taken out that. I would have been more nervous signing that initial loan than I would be now, or than I was back then. But man, the cool thing was, especially early on when it was, just making sure, trying to keep enough people coming in the door to pay our bills, keep the lights on, pay our rent, that sort of thing, was especially because all of our marketing was really boots on the ground in the first place. It was
It's the best kind.
is our effort equals this X amount of result. So if it's our success is only limited about how much effort we put in. Is if we're not meeting the bottom line, then we just have to put a little bit extra in, and there's always more room to be able to put more work in. So
amen.
Yeah. And then finally we kind of like, now that we finally kind of got over that hump of, hey, we can start being strategic about our marketing and actually putting some dollars back into that. That's where it's really gotten fun, and it's less of it's still a grind, but not nearly like it was in the past. And we get to be a lot more strategic about it now. And that's a really fun part.
Yeah. You're not doing, you're not personally doing 30 sample events in a single month. Like the good old days.
Yeah. I was averaging a sample event a day on top of working in the store and on top of training clients and working the front desk at a gym. So
good times. Let's do a quick cheers.
Yeah.
Teach, we really appreciate you being on, man, and coming down. I know it's a trip for you.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, of course. Oh yeah.
Good.
Man.
That extra añejo.
I'm really starting to find out how much I love an extra añejo. Like that, just like that almost added, I don't know, a sweetness to me that kind of comes through with it. Like the extra añejo that you got in Mexico. I forget which one that one is. It's kind of a twisted looking bottle.
Oh,
that one's good.
Adictivo.
Yeah. Oh, super good.
Some good fluid.
Yeah.
You had some Adictivo at your place, didn't you?
Yep.
Yeah. That stuff is awesome. It's phenomenal, by the way. That is great stuff, man.
Yeah. El Trago. Try that if you can. Is that here in Oklahoma at all?
You know what? I'd have to ask the boys. It should be.
Yeah.
I believe so.
It's kind of been cool to see you involved with that, because obviously with First Phorm, man, you've been involved in so many different aspects, even on the supplement superstore side of things when you first started, to watch you know, so many aspects of the company, but to watch you kind of step into more of like investor role with UNA VIDA and get to watch these other younger guys kind of make their moves and be strategic about it all, and just maybe help them along the way. It's just because we went back for the first day of Summer Smash this past summer and got to go over to your place and visit with some other retailers, and Alyssa and I stuck around a little longer than everybody else, and the UNA VIDA guys came over. It was cool to see. It was cool to meet them and hear how you guys kind of worked. And man, they just get into, you can tell they know the business.
Super passionate.
Yes. Yeah. And you kind of get to just sit back and let them do their thing.
And full disclosure on the One Life Spirit side, no dollar investment there for me. It's just all time. So it's helping keeping the guys in between the guardrails. You know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, let's look at this. Let's think about that. How about this? You know, how should we set this up? You know, and keeping them moving in the right direction so that they're, you know, not always running it too far up the ladder.
Yeah.
So to speak,
that makes sense. That makes sense. That's cool.
I mean, you saw First Phorm when it was at that size of a company.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, what is it? How many order, how busy was First Phorm when you first started?
10 orders.
10 orders
a day.
What you guys up to, like 12, 15 orders
a
day?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
So drastically different from, you know, where it is and now. It's incredible to see.
Absolutely. Because you guys are did you guys just break ground or just finish the second warehouse?
So the walls are up. It's I guess we could say it's under roof, right? But none of the interior decorating has been done. So
that's great.
It's getting closer and closer. Probably June-ish, I would
That's
guess.
awesome.
By the time we're in there.
And then a third one on the way.
Yeah, potentially a third one on the way. That's right.
Jeez.
Yeah.
My goodness, that's crazy. Well, and I mean, like, even, you know, in our little experience, but it's like I remember the days of you know, working at S2 and hearing like talking about First Phorm and people being like, I don't want your damn house brand.
Yeah.
quit trying to talk to me about this.
Oh yeah.
And it was like, man, no, I just like, it's genuinely good. Like and there's no doubt that that's the reason why First Phorm is what it is today and is much outgrown being a house brand of a supplement store, is because it's incredible products from top to bottom.
And that was certainly a big battle, for a long time was, trying to figure out how to have people not have that perspective on the brand, and that, just because it's made here in St. Louis, or the brand's from here in St. Louis, doesn't mean that it's like not better or, premium product compared to everything else that's on the market,
Absolutely.
So that's been a unique experience to see the change in that, to it being the bathtub stuff
to being in the right
official,
field, or be out in center field in the freaking Busch Stadium,
the official energy drink of the Blues, and a giant billboard at Busch. And,
that's such an incredible. That's the coolest thing to me. It's just like a lifelong Cardinals fan. It's like whenever I watch a game and like you see a ball hit out to right center, and it's just like you see that big old First Phorm sign out there. You're just like, and I'm sure for you guys, like that's got to be like as cool as it gets.
Well, it's just fun, right?
Yeah,
it's like what's next? Let's keep going.
And it's seeing that, and then watching Blues games where you guys are advertising the energy drinks. And I'm like, I'm just watching it here in Oklahoma. So
well, it's really cool because I do think you guys have done a good job of that, because that is a tough terrain to traverse through, right? Is going from that, like, people almost have that negative connotation, and I think for us, we've done pretty well with Define, of like being very straight up with people, being very honest that it's us, we make it, like this is it, like you don't have to get it, like we don't overly push it or anything. But like you guys have done a really good job, where I've been in the shoes where it was just at S2s and some other places around the country, into now from an outsider's perspective, but with plenty of friends up in St. Louis, how much First Phorm is a sense of pride now for people in St. Louis. Like you see people picking First Phorm because it's from St. Louis, and like that's such a cool thing, is because it's the same stuff. You know what I mean? It's like Watermelon Formula One's been around that whole time. Like I was selling Watermelon Formula One in S2, and it's still being sold in triads. And
it was
stuff
just
today.
as good as quality back then.
It's the same stuff. Exactly.
Right.
And so like it is a cool thing though, where it's like seeing all the people who have a sense of pride in First Phorm, or even in you'll see people, or 75 Hard's a huge one, obviously, through Andy and stuff. And, but it is a cool deal to kind of see the dynamic shift on that to being something where it's like, no, people are taking this, and people from St. Louis are very St. Louis proud. Oh yeah. And so, it's super cool to see how that has changed so much into being where people are seeking it out for that reason. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, do we want to light a cigar?
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
So tell us about these cigars.
First, tell us exactly how much it costs to be out in center field.
Oh, man. I don't even know. That's a Cody question, I think. I think he's in that realm.
We'll get Cody on next. Beautiful.
So these guys are Maduros. So we have in the Vida Nova line at this time. So the first 12 cigars will be named after the 12 apostles.
Oh, cool.
And one of the ideas behind that naming process is a lot of times you have a cigar and you absolutely loved it. You can't remember the damn name of it. Right.
Right.
So we tried to make it, to where it was memorable and you could figure it out.
Yeah.
It's all Nicaraguan tobacco. So the first three all have the same filler binder wrapper, but they're three different sizes. So Toro, Robusto, Lancero.
Very cool.
And then because of the different sizes, they generate a different flavor as you smoke it.
Yeah, very cool. Again, I want to compliment the branding on the cigar itself is tremendous. It's super, super cool.
This has been a little bit of a project. Some work. But it's been fun to do it kind of on the sidelines.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it's cool to just get to a point where you can hold it. Right.
That's right.
You can hold it. You can bring it here. You can talk about it on the podcast and stuff like that. That's a cool thing. Like
and in all of these businesses, like, I'm more of a consumer, no different than supplements, right? Like I was a huge consumer way before I became a connoisseur, and I would still say when it comes to booze and even cigars, like I'm the furthest thing from connoisseur. Like, I'm a consumer. I'm going to consume what I like. Yeah. Which is probably a good stance to be in, because the things you're going to make are going to be, from that, like that general population standpoint, that the general population is going to enjoy that.
Amen.
Not necessarily just the guy who is ultra into whatever, sometimes that's not necessarily the greatest customer to always have.
They're more of the gosh, what would you call that?
You have to be too experienced, right?
Yeah.
Then it's probably may not be as practical for everybody.
You're not at the top of the bell curve if you're looking for the best, like
Right.
that niche customer that knows everything.
Yeah.
So that's a good point.
This is an interesting. It's so true though. Yeah, like you don't necessarily like you can't always cater to like the most because like people aren't necessarily going to appreciate or understand the difference, and then what all the things that goes into that.
I mean, we see that in supplements a decent amount, like these formulas that come out and
they taste like shit. Like that's the problem, right? Like, I mean, so in that realm, like that's where like you could be like, okay, great. You're this ultimate like connoisseur. And you're right. Like all these things like do add up to like ultimately an unbelievable product. But if it tastes like complete crap, like, okay, well, who are we going to sell this to? Like, I don't, and sure there is a market for it, but it's going to be very niche.
Yeah.
Only the people that truly know what each ingredient and what each dose does will appreciate and be able to look past the flavor.
Right.
Where 99% of the people coming into the store, they might know a few ingredients, but they're not going to appreciate the one that's just absolutely blown up as far as the formula goes, but it tastes like crap. So,
and then when you go to tell that story about it, like, man, that's a hard story to tell, right?
Yeah.
Because the only way to tell that story is to get into the science. And like a lot of people aren't going to be too into the science.
Man, I'll even have, there's like been pre-workouts that I'm like, man, this one, I'll be honest with you, isn't the best flavor, but it is my favorite formula that we have on the shelf. And people will be like, oh, okay. And they'll even grab it that time and they'll come back a lot of times and give me negative feedback or even return it because they're like, man, I just can't get past the taste.
Yeah.
And it's like, you appreciate that I like the formula, but not enough to actually enjoy the product.
And we would, as connoisseurs, we would just slam it and move on. Right.
Yeah.
And enjoy what it's doing for us. But like to your point, like here's the general population, you don't get a repeat buy.
Right.
It's going to be tough.
Well, especially people who haven't been taking supplements for 15 years, where it's like they don't remember what it was like 14 years ago when everything tasted bad, like your best tasting stuff tasted bad.
Dude, those are my favorite customers where they're like, I've been taking protein. Like the last protein I took was 10 years ago. I'm like, I'm about to blow your mind.
You're not even gonna. I'm gonna give you this level 1 shake, and you are not gonna know what's going on.
You get an old Lucent Lab 7-pounder. You remember that? Oof.
Yeah, right.
You say 7-pounder?
Yeah, they used to make a 7-pounder. It was like it was a very unusually shaped bottle. And
I used to get Isomass Extreme Gainer, and the marketing behind it had everything you needed in it. Your whole thing, your multivitamin, your creatine, it had glutamine in there. Thank goodness they put glutamine in there for me because like there wasn't going to be any of that. It was like it's got your branch chains in there, and I was like, well, yeah, the marketing got me for sure. But it's like, and it was god awful. Oh, it was so bad. It was absolutely atrocious. But that was what you did. It's what you had to do back in the day.
Now, see, this looks like the kind of lighter like a connoisseur would have to use because I can't even figure out.
Yeah, look at this. I don't know.
You made me open the box of El Trago, so I'm going to let you figure that out on your own.
I'm afraid it's going to burn me.
That's the TV remote teacher.
Roger got it.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
man.
too funny. Yeah, I'm excited about this. Man, really appreciate you bringing this stuff down for us.
You got it.
So anybody else who wants to be on the podcast, you just remember.
I get some bourbon guys that are like, man, I'd really like to join the podcast and try some bourbon. I'm like, you got to bring your own bourbon if you're coming on for the bourbon.
That's right.
I think we're about out of fluid here.
I thought I just filled it up, but I got this one. That's bad.
Is that one less
complicated?
Difficult? Hey, my man.
What are we looking at with this? This is fancy. Where'd you get this? This was a gift.
Yeah, that's from my dad. My dad is a pretty big cigar connoisseur. I actually gave him whenever you guys still had just the cigars, like just in testing with no labels or anything, which was really cool to get. I brought one home for Thomas too and let him try it with like before you guys had it, like like any kind of like branding on or anything. It was just cool to be part of something before it's actually in market. But I gave my dad one. He gave it very good feedback.
Oh, that's good.
Yep. Liked it quite a bit.
Especially if he's a connoisseur.
He is.
Not just a consumer.
Yeah. He is more than I am. I think it was funny. I had 2 birthdays in a row where Thomas got me a boatload of cigars And then my dad got me a boatload of cigars, and I just had like way more than I'm going to smoke in the next 10 years.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm either going to have to smoke these until I'm sick, or we're going to have some people over and they'll just smoke it for me.
There you go. Look at that. See, I'm just not smart enough to use that lighter.
Yeah, I'm struggling over here too. I'll be real with you.
What's the name of that lighter? Maybe they need a brand ambassador.
They probably need to just show me how to fill that thing up, because I thought I filled it up, but I probably didn't.
No, you can see the fluid. There's some fluid in there, but it's
some of them have like a purge thing where you're supposed to, let some of the air out before you try to fill it.
Oh,
where's the throwaways? That's what I need.
we got this other one if you want.
Yeah, I'll do that other one from you real quick.
So are these all Apostle Johns?
All the ones I brought.
Okay.
Yep. Are all
Very
going to be
good.
John. So that's the Toro size. Peter is a Robusto, and then James is a Lancero, which is, Lancero size is skinnier.
Okay.
About the same size as your pinky, but much, much longer.
Yeah. It's interesting. I didn't realize, and I guess it makes sense if I think about it, but that the size of the cigar will adjust how the flavor is as you smoke it.
The next ones will kind of move more into that Connecticut flavor profile from the Maduro.
Gotcha. In Connecticut, I'm not super well versed with cigars myself. Connecticut would be a little lighter.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Man, this is nice. Today
I'm not super good at cigars either, but
yeah.
Oliver, who is running that portion, the kid's pretty damn good when it comes to cigars.
Has he worked in the industry a lot?
He has consumed a lot of cigars. He has worked, in cigar shops though, and everything in the past too.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's awesome. That's
how kind of going back just to kickstart a little bit more here, how did you get your start at First Phorm? What happened there? I don't know if I know that story.
Yeah, so my degree is actually in plant science. So grew grass for a long period of time, almost 20 years.
Wow.
In the golf business, which was enjoyable while it was enjoyable. And then, at the end of it, which when I got out of the business was right after the market crash and 9-10, and into that. And there were, for a long period of time when I was just in school and getting out of school, they were opening 300, 400, 500 golf courses a year.
Yeah.
And jobs were not only plentiful, but they were paying very well too. Well,
Nice.
like anything, if you start to flood the market, it's going to kind of fall apart, right? That was in the Tiger Wood days. So Tiger was bringing a lot of people to golf, but unfortunately, as that went on, people kind of got tired of the Tiger show, right? And you couldn't watch golf without the only person you're ever seeing was Tiger, and it actually kind of was not good for golf there. Near the end of his run.
Yeah.
Awesome for him, how amazing of a golfer he was, but golf wasn't necessarily always meant to just be won by one person. It's a pretty aggressive sport when it comes to mindset and discipline, and to see somebody just dominate it like that, I think it kind of wore them out.
Yeah.
Right.
Brought attention to it, but made it kind of fragile
at
almost.
the end.
Yeah. When you kind of know the outcome.
Yeah.
Right. It's like watching a game that you already know who's going to win.
Something like he won 24, and I think back to it now because I'm a golf fan, and I watch golf and we golf a lot, and it's like you look back and you start reading through some of the things, because it was like I wasn't super into golf then. I wasn't really playing a ton like I even like I do now, and it's like, and I'll say some of these numbers too, and they're probably inaccurate, but they're close. Where it was like he won something like 24 events in over a 2-year span.
Jeez,
what? The guy might win 3, and it's like this guy's winning every other week he's winning on tour, and it's like that's just bananas.
I didn't pay attention to golf enough back in his prime, and that's just absolutely nuts.
Yeah, compared to now, nobody does that.
No one even
nobody
close.
even close.
No.
Right. So if you look at the salaries in that, because of them opening so many golf courses, and then all of a sudden golf kind of falling off, right? Because people weren't spending money to go play golf, and they had all these extra golf courses. In a 15-year span, the average salary for a superintendent and general manager literally dropped by almost 80%. Jobs that were well over $100,000 when I got out of school 15 years later, 40.
Oh, wow.
Jeez.
Which is tough, right?
Yeah.
Now, inside that process, there were also, when I went to school, Rutgers and Penn State were two of the only schools that had a turf specific degree, like we had. And then by the time again, all of a sudden, all these community colleges and everybody else had some sort of certificate or degree similar. So it just kind of like the market was flooded in all directions, right? Which is never good for trying to increase salary.
Yeah, right. You know, there's
not to mention I'm a Midwest kid with an East Coast degree from Rutgers, and it's very compartmentalized as far as like guys in the Midwest are going to do good if they're from a Midwest school, and same way. There was a lot of politics when it came to that, so would have been much better off staying on the East Coast, but came back home because I have a 27-year-old. So
27 now, huh?
Yeah, he's 27. So 45. I have a 27 or I'm 44. I have a 27-year-old. You can do the math on.
Yeah. Ryan used to work at a golf course here, actually.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Just worked at a local one. Looked at going through PGM and everything, but didn't want to go to the actual schooling. I wanted to go through like a head pro as more of a mentorship type way. And the guy at the course I was at just pretty much told me, no, like, I'm not going to do that for you. You have to do the schooling.
Right.
And so I ended up putting my 2 weeks in like a week later.
Nice.
Yeah. And now look at you. He's listening to this podcast and he's
crying.
Seems like he won.
I hope so.
Crying while he's driving, listening.
Yeah.
Wish I would have had
what could have been?
So Andy moved, right? Andy, one of the owners of Supplement Superstore, came to St. Louis in 2006, I think, to open the basically take over some locations that were a different company. I met him in that process through one of my buddies that I was training with, Brett Becker, who was like one of the OG bodybuilders in St. Louis that everybody knew. And we started training together from then on, and really just kind of like First Phorm became a thing. And he's like, sometime I'll have a position for you. And I was like, I don't know. I'm still doing this golf thing, man. I'm kind of good. And then the golf thing kind of wasn't so good.
Yeah.
Here we are. Right. Like it's kind of wild how life happens like that. But
And you worked on the S2 side of things for a little bit, right?
I did for, filling, mainly the S2 side was kind of filling in gaps where either people had been let go or something wasn't working out, and or some, a store needed some help. Went in and just, tried to do the right thing.
Yeah. Man, it's so funny to think back, because just even in our time, and I think one of the cool things for us personally, I know it's something that we've talked about, and we use you guys almost as an example sometimes, where kind of even talking back to what we were talking about earlier when it was talking about like starting UNA VIDA and stuff, was we will talk to some of the staff, especially some of the younger staff, and we'll have this conversation with them where they're like, okay, where are we going to be? Where are we going to be? What's this going to look like? What's this going to look like? And like, from us, and especially you, like, we have a firsthand perspective of what can change in 5 years, let alone 10, let alone 15. And so it's like, we talk to them and it'd be like, guys, you know how much First Phorm we sell like a week? And they're like, yeah. And they're like, that was a house brand. Like that was nothing. Like that was not nothing, but you guys know what I mean? Where it was like, it was not what it is today. Like not even close. And it's like, we've seen the steps that can achieve that, and like that it's real and that it can happen. And so, I think it's been cool for us to give us a lot of belief of like, okay, we feel like we're bringing a really good thing to market. We feel like we're bringing, when it comes to the triad side of things, like we feel like we've got a really good recipe of like how we do this. We've got a good playbook. We feel like this is a repeatable thing. And it's like explaining to people, telling them like, hey, Preston's a great example. Preston manages our Norman location, is our head formula maker whenever it comes to Defined Nutrition. And it's like, he understands that like his Defined Nutrition full-time job just doesn't exist yet because we don't need it yet. And it's like, and it's getting to that direction. But being able to see what First Phorm and S2 honestly have done has given us a lot of belief in like, hey, like this is an actual achievable thing. This isn't just, we're just dreaming here. Like we've watched it happen before.
Yeah.
So
I think if you're, I'll pick on the sub 30-year-olds, right? And that are maybe listening. There's 2 P's that get missed all the time in that demographic or that age group, and perspective and patience is you were born with a phone in your hand and you had kind of answers right at your fingertips. And, just because you have all the ingredients to make a cake, and just because you put all those ingredients into a pan, you can't speed up how fast that cake takes to bake.
That's exactly right.
You just have to keep doing the right
That's
thing.
a good analogy.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point, talking about how quickly we've seen like you guys grow. And we say quickly, and that's, over the course of 5 or 10 years, we talked with some of the employees and they start getting impatient at a year in, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But, we've got a group of really good guys, really good people and girls. And everybody's been super loyal and in for the long haul. But it's some of our employees, but especially a lot of parents and our people that just don't know the industry. It's we look to you guys to show that this is what's possible in this industry. This is what's achievable. And we were just talking on the way over here that bringing Anthony, he was our last guest on the podcast, the manager of Quail Springs, taking him to the First Phorm headquarters and just showing him he's seen it on Instagram. He follows Andy, listens to the podcast, knows all about it, but having him there has just totally changed his mentality at work. It's been really cool. And I'm excited and really, really excited that you guys offer these opportunities for us to come visit and for me to bring some guys by and show them First Phorm and, and get them excited about First Phorm, but to just truly show them what's possible in this industry. And I think a lot of people just don't even realize the potential.
No, they don't have any idea.
Well,
Right.
I think in order for you to make your dreams come true, you have to make space for them to come true, right? Which means probably getting rid of some of the negative shit you're telling yourself.
That's
or your family's telling you, or
Amen.
like whatever you've seen growing up. Like if you're trying to get out of that environment, then you have to forget about what created that environment.
Amen.
Right? And move past it.
I vastly underestimated the power of getting rid of bad habits, not bad habits, but like things that I thought were good and getting me in the right direction, but truly taking inventory of the things I'm doing on a day-to-day basis and getting rid of those to make time for things that are more beneficial in my life. Like doing that has drastically changed my effectiveness day to day.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that people mistake all the time there is like, and you just said it, time, and I understand what you mean when you say time, but I think a lot of people misinterpret time. Like you can't make more time. You're not God.
It's true.
But if you think of it in space, like if you were going to make more space in your house, if you needed to make room for something else in your house, what would you do? You'd get rid of shit
Right.
to make space for it. So in order to make space for something good to come in, you've got to get rid of the space that's being taken up by all the bad shit.
And I think you bring up a really good point, because it's definitely, and I'm sure you can probably attest to this. I know I can attest to this, and I know plenty of people on our staff and other staff similarly can attest to this, that sometimes that is relationships. Sometimes it's family members, sometimes it's friends, whatever. I remember, leaving, higher paying jobs or leaving whatever. And like when you tell people that don't understand or don't see the dream or don't believe in the dream, that I'm leaving XYZ job to go work at a supplement store, is what they're hearing. And they're like, you're doing what? Like, you're going to go work at a supplement store? Like just like a little what? And it's like, those kind of, are they going to match your pay? Like, no, not even close. Like, that's not what this is about. But it is a big thing where, I'm sure we've had people on staff, and I know I've dealt with it myself, where it's like people see a very surface level thing, and, they don't quite understand like, hey, what's actually possible within this realm. And like, this is something that can go really far. And like, we feel like we have the people to do it. And so it's like you said, we're baking that cake. We just got to get it in the oven. And it is funny, because I remember the first conversation I had with somebody like that, and they were in their young 20s. I won't name who it was. They're still on staff, but I told them, you know, what we saw from First Phorm. And then I was like, you know, what do you think, like, in 5 years, like, we could be here? And when I said 5 years, their eyes were as big as their head, like 5 years. And I'm like thinking about it, I'm like, oh yeah, you were like a freshman in high school 5 years ago, weren't you? Like, of course this sounds like that's a quarter of your life. Like, of course that sounds like a long time. I'm like, you're going to blink your eyes and 5 years is going to go by. It's like, we've been here for 7, like we were just talking about. And it's like, well, I've been here for 6, I get a little over 6.5. And so it's like, wow, like 5 years flies by.
We hired Hasi's one of our new employees. He's 19 years old. I was like, yeah, he's around my age, like 11 years younger than I am.
Yeah, exactly.
It was yesterday for me when I saw him, or when Anthony made a Fast and Furious reference and he didn't pick up on it. And then I'm like, wait, you might not have been born when that first movie came out.
Oh yeah.
And it like kind of clicked for me how young he is.
That was interesting to me because you and Anthony are kind of like an age below or age younger than I am. And to watch Hasi talk about you guys being old, I just like stepped away.
Yeah. Well, like, remember when you were Hasi's age, he was in kindergarten.
Goodness.
I hate you, Hasi. Golly. But that's what happened. And it's just going to get worse. You know what I mean? It's just going to get.
It only goes by faster, fellas. I'll tell you.
You turn 40, just be younger and younger and younger.
Yeah, you turn 45 in a couple of weeks.
Then you're hiring a 19-year-old and you're like, oh, my son's older than you.
Yeah, geez.
But, you know, it's cool, though. I feel like, you know, I feel especially cool sitting here talking with you guys about it because it's like, you know, we are all people who like took that step off the ledge of like, you know what, I want to go do something that like I think is really cool. Something I want to go chase something that I think is, you know, bigger than me and bigger than just like what I'm doing. And I've had plenty of career 9-to-5s and it's like, you know, and I felt that unfulfilling, you know, it didn't matter what my paycheck said. It didn't, I always tell people I was living for the weekends and I was, you know, I was going to be 50 one day and my only joy was going to come from going to the lake every weekend and getting as drunk as I could or whatever that looked like because I was just dying throughout the week.
Right.
And it's like, you know, when I made the decision to, you know, really get back into this was like, you know, you don't have many chances, especially as you get older in your life to like change those railroad tracks of where you're headed. And, you know, you start to have more and more financial people obligations, you know, you don't have a lot of opportunities in your life to just say, you know what, like, screw it. Like, I'm going to go for it. Money is the 4th most important thing to me right now. I can make this work. And so it's cool because I love being surrounded by people who do that because they understand what it takes to be doing this and like what it takes and the sacrifices that like you have to go through. But on top of that, you also get to see, and this is why I love talking to you, is like you get to see people in this, like what we consider, I hope you consider yourself successful, but like what we consider and we sit and we look at and you're like, that's a goal right there. Like that's where we want to be like looking to one day. And so it's like, it's great just kind of to be around, especially in days like today, you know, when we have like the event, we have a bunch of vendors out and people who are lifers in this and people who've been doing it for a long, long time and just getting to rub elbows and talk to them and talk about their experiences and stuff and how they got to where they are. Cause man, it's super inspiring for us to just, you know, obviously we've burned all the bridges of backups, you know, it's this or nothing, you know, you're going to have to kill me to get me out of here kind of thing.
Burn the ships, right?
That's right.
I think unfortunately from what you just said, that when you have that mindset, you don't ever see yourself as being successful. You know what I mean? Like that's good and bad, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
you're always chasing, you know, the next thing. And, you know, to your point, the railroad track thing, like I wanted to change the life that my family could have. Like that was what was most important, you know, to me, and show them that, you know, it could be done, you know, and make sure that Brendan he sees a different path and that Peyton sees a different path.
Amen.
You know, and it's funny. She's 11. He's 27. They've had drastically different childhoods.
Sure.
You know, I mean, we were super poor when Brennan was little and he didn't get to do a whole lot of things. In fact, I think until he went away to the Navy, he probably didn't see anything. you know, outside of Missouri for the most part, right? And here, Peyton at 11, I tried to get her to come on this trip, and she didn't want to because the little girl's been in 35 states and all over the country, and has, you know,
just another trip.
yeah, she's like, exactly. He's like, well, how are we getting there? I'm like, all right, here we go.
Yeah.
It's funny seeing her run around in First Form HQ and all the athletes that like are like the like the biggest names on Instagram are like they all know Peyton.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, and that's something that I think is probably, you know, put everything, what's successful, that's successful for me. Like,
amen.
You know, I don't necessarily see myself successful on the business side of things yet. But as far as like raising kids, giving them a different view from what I saw growing up, like I think I've done a pretty good job at that. You know, I want to give myself an A+, but I give myself, you know, passing grade for sure.
What to go back really quick, what was your title at the at OU Med?
I was the assistant director of patient transport for OU Med in the Children's Hospital.
Did you have a lot of people have a reaction to your title change?
1,000%. Oh yeah. Tons and tons and tons of people that just like a lot of people there didn't quite understand. Like they were people who were especially like higher ups because like not to toot my own horn, but like I was doing a good job. Like they were offering me jobs. They were trying to create positions for me to stay. Like they wanted me there. And so it was really, you know, an interesting thing because we had taken our department at the time, like they rank them essentially because they're contracted within, like we're contracted all over the country. So we have about 200 contracts across the country, and it's a time-based thing. Like if you are a nurse and you need a patient, or you're an X-ray and you need a patient, the faster I can get them there, the better. That's how hospitals make money. So the faster I can do it, the more money we can make. When I took over, we were out of like 208 hospitals, we were like ranked like 148th. And a year after I had been the assistant director, we were number 2. And so had just like a huge shift in like what we're able to do. They actually came and wrote an article on us, like for like an internal like magazine that they did. And like, so when I told them that, because they're like, you know, you can go to whatever hospital you want. They were like, you're next up I was essentially, it's kind of funny. That almost works like a farm system in like baseball, where it's like, if you're an assistant director, you're a AAA guy, and they're just like, they're ready to just find a place for you that it's going to make sense. And so I was essentially, at the time, I was like the number 1 assistant director in the country. So like I had my pick of any hospital that was opening, we were getting a new contract, or if an assistant or if a director was moving on or something was happening, like I had my first choice of like anywhere in the country. And so my 3 options before I came back to Triad were Kansas City, Chicago, and New Orleans. And so like those were my 3 options. And what's funny is I remember like turning them down and not really having an answer when they asked me why. And so I just, you know, realizing I wasn't fulfilled and that I wasn't ever going to be like in this career path. But yeah, like talking to those people, you know, when the president of patient transport over the entire nation, you know, like the number 1 guy, calls you and is like, what the heck? Like, what are you talking about? Like you can have anything you want. Like we'll make a position for you here at OU if you want it. And I was like, I just gotta be honest with you, man. Like this isn't the path I want to go down. Like I just, you know, I see this. And I think back to Teach's point was like, for me, personally, I knew taking one of those positions was I was selling out on the life I really wanted. Like I was choosing money over what my like happiness was going to be. And it was a scared choice. Like it was like, I'm taking this because like, you know, my Chicago offer was over $100,000 a year. And so it's like, you know, when you have that, there's not, you know, you can go into a room with 100 people and be like, how many of you have ever had a job offer of over $100,000? And you're not going to get a lot of hands. Like those don't just pop up. And so there's like a part of you in life that it's like, you take that no matter what the conditions are, no matter what the looks like, no matter your life, like how stressed you are.
Based on your past.
Yeah.
Right. Based on what you know.
1,000%.
You're like, I can't say no to that.
I can't say no to that. And that's why I think the super cool thing that you brought up is like, not just for yourself, but the example that you're setting for your kids that like, no, that doesn't have to be like, go chase your dreams, like go do the thing that makes you happy. And I'll be proud of you when you like watching you go chase your dreams, because that's such a huge thing. Because from my past, all I ever heard from the majority of people in my life were like, what are you doing? Like, they're going to pay you this. They're going to pay you this. They're going to pay you this. And I'm like, and this is and I've said this before, I don't know if I said it on the podcast, but if your first question is not about my happiness, your opinion doesn't matter to me anymore. Like if your first thing you bring up is about money and not my happiness, like we're in totally different directions here. And I'm not listening to you anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like, but the people who are like, oh man, so you're really happy there. And it's like, thank you. Yes, I was, compared to what they were going to pay me, I was about $85,000 a year happier being a triad than I was, being where I was and what I was going to do, and having a work cell phone on me 24/7, 365. And the only time I was allowed to be off is if I was out of the country. And it's like, just, I was growing gray hairs, and it's like,
right.
But that's the thing is like, I just remember getting those from people close to me, whether it was family members or people that I worked with or just friends or whatever, when it was like that first, well, like, what? I thought your job offer was really lucrative. And it's like, yeah, cool. I'll have a nicer car and a new set of golf clubs every 2 years I don't need, and I'll be miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like retire at 62 and then do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
because I'll be so stressed out, and my if I don't have a heart attack by then, because my blood pressure's through the roof all the time because I'm so stressed out. And it's like, I remember even at the time, and like, I'm 27, 28 years old at the time. And like, I remember sitting in my office, like, it's funny enough, shout out Miracle Labs, because I was sitting in my office drinking Stars and Pipes because I could feel my blood pressure push my eyeballs out, right? I'm like drinking like blood flow product. I'm drinking pump products to try to like lay off my blood pressure for a little bit because I'm just so stressed. Jeez. And it's like, and this is something I bring up all the time, and we can move on, but it was like being in an environment like Triad, like Define, even someone Superstores and First Phorm, being involved in then, was like being in an environment where everybody's rowing the boat the same direction. We're all trying to be successful. We're all trying to do what's best, or at least the vast majority. Nobody's trying to sink the ship. Nobody's trying to row the wrong way. Nobody's poking holes. No one's trying to mutiny. Like, it's such a, like, it is the most drastically underrated thing to be in a room where everybody just wants the best for everybody next to them and the company itself, because they understand what that provides for them and their family and the people around them, and like just a sense of pride or whatever it is. But it's like, that's such a huge thing that, like, when I worked at the hospital, like, he had people who'd worked there longer than I'd been alive, inpatient transport, and never really wanted to do anything else with their life. And they'd worked there for 60 years, and all they wanted to do was hate whoever was in charge for one reason or another, and it's like, this is what I got to do. This is what I'm going to deal with forever. I'm going to deal with this for the rest of my life. And it's like, nah, not for me, man.
When did your son, sorry to change the
topic
a little bit, but when did your son join the Navy?
Right out of high school.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's been there for what, 9 years now?
Yeah, he's out. No, he's out. He did his 5 and got out.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
What's he doing now?
He does like a high-end detail.
Oh, nice.
Paint correction.
Very cool.
We know a lot of people who do that. That's awesome work.
Wrapping.
That's super cool.
Paint production, film, the whole thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
How do you like the Navy?
He was not necessarily like a huge fan of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not an uncommon thing to hear.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He was aboard the Stennis. He did, he made it through it. Right.
Yeah.
At the time, I told him that college probably really wasn't an option for him because I would probably kill him.
Yeah.
So the Navy was a good choice.
Yeah.
Figuring out exactly where he wanted to be and where he needed to go. And it's really helped push him in a good direction.
Yeah.
Because part of knowing where you want to go is knowing where you don't want to go.
Yes. Yes.
Right.
Amen.
That definitely helps.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely.
Common theme. I mean, like we talked about, like, as much as I've, not to hate on my family, but as much as I've learned through my growing up a family of, it's like we're talking about, it's like those are the learned things, that those are your gut reactions to go to. And it's like, no, I learned that's not what I want. Like, I don't want to go that direction. And it's like, you can learn just as much from a bad situation as you can from a good situation. It's like, you just learn how to not do things, or how to, not handle it, or not want to go somewhere.
Yep. For sure.
How has it been for you getting involved in other areas of business outside of supplements? Has it been fun to kind of create a little bit more of a dynamic work in different industries?
Yeah, and I think what it does is it offers a opportunity for us to do things when we're not necessarily working. So one of the things that my favorite thing to do when I'm not working is to go out to dinner, or to go experience food or drinks somewhere, outside of the house.
Yeah.
So, it's natural, right? We go and see the bartenders that we love that are serving Una Vida or whatever. We go to a cigar bar and hang out for a second. It's really not, it's not really extra work. It's something that we're doing already. And really those are conversations that with these guys that I was having anyways. So may as well just, put them in a positive direction, right?
Amen.
And help move everybody forward.
Doing work, but kind of doing it because you enjoy it more than anything.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, taking what you enjoy and just making it work for you.
Yeah. Taking some of the lessons that we've already learned and applying them, and let's not do it this way. We should try to do it that way and keep moving.
Do you have any regular responsibilities with Una Vida?
No, with neither company really.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
No. To be quite honest, I don't really have time for the first Phorm thing is pretty active. It's pretty active.
Well, man, I don't know that I realized how much you were involved with on the first Phorm side of things. Because obviously, our relationship with you is with wholesale, and you run pretty much the entire wholesale department with First Phorm, right?
Right.
Which is, how many guys are on your team?
So we kind of call it business to business sales. So
Okay.
Whether it's a mass channel or specialty shops like yours, then kind of overseeing the guys that are doing that business. And I think right now there's 9 sales guys, depending on what silo they're fishing, and then the warehouse guys, we have our own wholesale guys that only pack our orders. So I'm very involved in their lives and making sure that they're progressing through the company and have opportunities as they present themselves to move up.
Yeah.
Man, that's a big thing that we talk about, especially with the managers now, where it used to be, me managing everybody that worked at the company when it was just a handful of people. And, now with 14 people, including myself, is I can't be involved with every single individual person. We talk with the managers of, hey, you got to be looking at every single person, especially the people that are here day in and day out killing it and helping them find their next opportunity. Because a big reason they're here and working as hard as they are,
because they believe,
is because they believe and
Right.
they want to create a company that provides an opportunity for them in the future. Is we got to be keeping that in mind, that we got to be finding, as we're growing the company, we got to be helping find their opportunities.
That's right. Well, you got to paint the picture for them, right? So you got to show them exactly where they can go, and then hopefully help to build the path for them to follow to get there.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
Absolutely.
the worst thing you can do is lose. Like if you got great employees, you don't want to lose them.
Yeah.
Because there are not a whole lot of great employees out there.
Nope.
The world is, unfortunately, that's becoming less and less. Anybody who's went to a restaurant and had dinner knows that the service side of things is falling apart, and that really has to do with just society. Like it's not their fault; it's society's fault. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In fact, the older we get, the more it's our fault. Because it's the perspective for those people hasn't been painted in the right direction.
Right.
Media and everybody else has taken the potential of how it should be to be human and work and achieve something out from underneath them, and it's becoming very robotic and blah.
Yeah. Well, it's really interesting too, because sometimes when you're painting that picture, you have to make it make sense, and sometimes it doesn't, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like one of the ones that we'll talk to some of our people who are especially on the cusp of the next thing, right? Like they've been doing really well in their position, and they're just kind of gaining into a position that's coming eventually, but it might not be here yet. And so one of the one that's really funny is, we talk a lot about being like where you're needed, right, is such a huge thing. And, I think, again, Preston's a good example of that. Is like Preston's lifelong goal is not to be a manager and not even to necessarily work on the triad side of things, but he wants to formulate, and that's what he's good at, and that's his best. But where the company needs him right now is he's the most capable person to manage Norman. And he understands, well, sometimes your ladder of growth looks like this. Sometimes it looks like this. Like sometimes you're all over the place. And sometimes it's like, no, you got to kind of be where you're needed. And as long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, these opportunities will continue to find you. And talking about keeping good people, like that's such a big thing of like, no, this might not be your exact path you thought you were going to be on, but understand the succession that's happening here. leads to where you want to be and leads to like the opportunity presenting itself. And, you talk about finding good people, and I'm sure, and just knowing the people that we are involved with when it comes like Jean-Luc or different people that we deal with from First Form and how great they are. And it's like, I'm sure you guys have a similar idea on it, but it's like we hire character first. And that's like our go-to is it's like, people come in and be like, oh, I know all this about supplements. I'll be like, look, I don't care how much you know or love supplements like this. Like, can you treat everyone who comes in here like your grandma? And it's like, if you could do that, I could teach you all the rest of this. I could teach you supplements. I can teach you. I can't teach how to care. And it's like, as soon as if I can get somebody who can care, then I can show you everything else. And like, and hopefully you'll understand, where that can benefit in the long term. But yeah, it's so tough to find the right people and keep them motivated. And like, especially when their path doesn't necessarily make perfect logical sense.
Right. And I think to your point there's a C word that gets missed all the time with communication, and it's comprehension. Mm-hmm. Right. Like everybody loves to talk about communication, and we can sit up there and mom and dad and at some point it sounds like Charlie Brown's teacher, right? And most of the kids listening to this have no idea who Charlie Brown is. But, if they don't comprehend it in any relationship, whether it's a love relationship or a work relationship or a friendship or whatever, if they're not comprehending it, then communication is just noise, man.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, it's a very important thing, because you realize that, and this is something that we try to take a lot of pride in this situation. And I'm glad you brought that up, is it's like, you can't just hang your hat on, no, I communicated it. And it's like, no, it's your responsibility as the manager, as the leader, to make sure that they comprehend it as well. Like, you realize, and it's easy to get frustrated when you're having the same conversation with somebody for the fourth time about, their progression or whatever. And it's like, sometimes you got to look in the mirror and just be like, maybe I'm giving this to you the wrong way. Maybe the way I'm explaining, this is my fault that you're not comprehending what's going on here and seeing this as an opportunity or seeing this as this. And so it's a huge thing that you bring up there, that like and ultimately we believe that it's our responsibility to make sure, like, you've got to make sure that they comprehend this as well. It's not just your responsibility to spout it out them, like make sure, like, even in a positive way, sometimes it's not always what's going to land and make them understand like what's going on.
I think for me, like part of growing up into an adult, which only happened a few years ago, was figuring out that I was at least 50% of every problem and I could be 100% of the solution.
Amen.
So that was a huge, and it's a relief, right? When you think about it that way, you're like, man, a lot of this is my fault, or all of it's my fault, right? But I can fix every bit of it.
Yeah.
And having that mindset it lifts a whole lot of shit off of your back.
Preston's a really cool one to bring up. We actually got to take a really cool step with him. So he's the manager of our Norman location, started with Thomas essentially the day that store opened, has been involved. Obviously, formulations is his passion. And what he wants to do. And there's a limited amount that he can be involved with. And he's in charge of every new product, every reformulation that we do, but there's still only a certain amount that takes, on a weekly basis. But we get to take a really cool step in his progression. We got him CC'd on all the emails to our guy, Bruce, the person that we work with. And, but essentially passing along communication, Preston becoming the point of contact with all our manufacturers, because I'm getting to the point where I'm like having stuff on my to-do list for product development that's getting pushed back a week or two because I just can't get to it. It's like, man, we need someone that can get to it. So it's cool to see him start to kind of make that progression, but to also look at him and see that point of, man, he's still taking on the responsibilities and learning what it takes to be a manager, even though that's not his long-term goal. And I think one of the things that really helps us understand that that's okay is watching you where you've managed S2s, you've worked in wholesale, you've worked with formulations, you've been involved in so many aspects, and and to see how well that's worked and being able to put other people into those types of roles where they're involved in multiple facets of the company. It really, because otherwise it would be a little scary to have people involved in so many different parts of things and so many different things that require so many different skills in different areas.
Yeah. I think getting things off of your plate can sometimes be hard too when you birth them, right? Like if they were your baby and now you get to pass it off to somebody else, like, man, that can be tough. But it's one of the things that, you know, in order to move the company forward, and I like that you didn't use that you're too busy for it, right? Because it's not necessarily that you're too busy for it. You got too many things going. You're too active, right? Like I always try to, you know, people are like, "Oh, how's it going?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm active."
Yeah. That's a good answer.
I don't like to use the word busy, right? But, I mean, ultimately it is, that's what it is. Right. But you know, sometimes busy has a negative connotation. So active, you know, just puts things in perspective. And, you know, I would much rather be active than I know what it feels like to not be active. I do not want to go back there. Like, that is not fun.
Yeah.
No, that's a scary one.
Right. You can make yourself busy doing absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you could be busy playing video games, but hard to be active playing video games. Right. Like, so, you know, using those words that maybe have a bad spin and getting them out of your vocabulary is one of those things too that helps move in a better direction.
And I love being involved with the manufacturers and the product development, but there's other things that take
or just
priority
more important right now.
They're more important and other things that I truly want to do. Yeah, different. So being able to pass that along, is a little nerve wracking sometimes. And we're easing into it because this is a big one for us, but it's cool to see people start, like I've started to appreciate the joy of watching someone else take on a project and make it their own and do well with it.
Right.
So
and more perspectives is never a bad thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's good to get some outside influence in there and, you know, just see things from a different angle.
Amen. Yeah. Well, and I think, and kudos to Kevin, and I've complimented you this multiple times on this, is like you know, you do a good job. I think it's tough for anybody in that situation. It's even tough for me in that situation at times where it's like, you know, I grew Norman for 2 years and it was, you know, it was my day to day. It was my baby. I had, you know, was building relationships, like doing all, and I had plenty of help and great help, but it was like, you know, this is something that I was ultimately responsible for. And like, you know, doing all those things that you've always done a really good job of allowing people to at least be involved and grow into that role of being able to, like, to a point where obviously you have to be comfortable, but you've always been very open on like making sure that those possibilities were very apparent to people. Like you've made it very apparent to Preston or to Ryan is a great example too of like, hey, like, we're doing this, and the more you can prove to me that you're doing this and doing it well, the less I'm going to be involved in it. The less it's going to become more and more yours. And so it is, and it's super rewarding. Just even on that note, I stopped into Norman the other day and, you know, went to a couple gyms, just happened to be in town and, you know, went around to some of the old spots I used to hang out at when I managed Norman, and just hearing them just praise Preston on how well he's doing. And it's like, that's a whole different sense of pride there. Like, you're super excited and super proud of what they're doing and how he's doing, or how many compliments Ryan gets on social media, or had the things, just our whole team. I mean, I got 3 compliments from people today about Kaylin, and people going and seeing her in the Yukon store and how great she, and it's like, that's where you're like, oh, this is just as cool as anything else we do. Like, I love this just as much.
For more rewarding when you get those compliments yourself.
Yeah, 1,000%. Like, cool. Tell me I'm great, but tell me that she's great. Like, oh, that's even cooler. Like,
give you confidence and being like, man, maybe they're better than this than I am. So.
Good. And that's the point. Like, I want them to be. I want Preston to be twice the manager I ever was in Norman. And the better he can do that means that, you know, whoever, Christian or whatever the next name that says manager next to it in Norman, I hope he's better than Preston was. And I hope that we continue to go down that path. I hope that I go down in history as the worst manager that Norman ever had.
Right? So I've got some news for you.
Oh, great.
We opened UConn just really to get you out of Norman.
I was really screwing that one up. I get it. Yeah, joke's on you. I'm crashing this one.
Well, it sounds like the pick and the build out and everything I was involved with was so good that it's just outshined whatever you're doing there.
I was talking to Preston about just UConn and how it's been doing and stuff, and he was like, "Well, it sounds like you were a really bad manager in Norman, and you kind of figured it out in UConn." And I was like, "No, it's just all the layups we get from Quail Springs. It's all the gimmies."
Anthony, it's a true MVP.
That's right. I'll give it to Anthony all day. That's too funny. But it's cool. And I'm curious as to, you know, what you think, because I'm sure it comes with its different array of challenges. But would you say, compared to First Phorm being, a couple of guys back when you kind of first got involved versus now. Obviously, would you say it's more or less challenging now than it was then? Obviously, it's just a different challenge, but what do you feel like? One of the things we talk about and that we've experienced, and I hope to put this in the right way, is that like, especially with store openings, certain aspects of it are definitely harder, but certain aspects of it are also easier. Like our brand name has grown. People know who we are. People are able to associate with us easier. What's the difference like between, day one at First Phorm and yesterday at First Phorm?
Yeah. I mean, I think, this refers back to, and Sal says it all the time, that if you're not growing, then you're dying, right? If you look at a tree, and I think that it's just the next set of hurdles to get across, right? And if you're not constantly finding new things to either innovate into or grow into or figure out, then likely you're probably either coasting, which if you're coasting, there's no way not to slow down, right? You take your foot off the gas, you're going to slow down. No matter what.
Right.
Yeah.
Because life's not downhill unless you're going the wrong way. So it really, comes down to, it's just the next set of things. But, along the way, you get more and more pride or more and more, I can't think of the word. You're confident that you can figure out, like, okay, we'll figure this out.
This decision you're about to make is probably not going to sink this whole ship.
Right. And it may not be the right one, but you know what? Sometimes, like, I'm very guilty of this in relationships or whatever else, that sometimes sitting is the worst idea that you can do. Like, if you're in a bad situation, like, sometimes you got to pick a direction and start swimming. Like, because treading water, you're going to drown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So let's find a direction and start swimming. And maybe it's not the best one, but then change your course. At least you got stronger from the swim.
Yeah. Right.
So,
amen.
Yeah. If I sit here and tread water, I'm definitely going to drown.
Right.
If I pick a direction, I at least got a chance.
Yeah. And then in that same thing, like, sometimes if you're the jellyfish and you're just boom, bouncing all over the place and you haven't actually focused on something and moving and know where you're going, you're screwed. Same thing. You're going to drown.
Yeah.
Or you're just going to be kicked around.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Which ain't fun either.
No. Yeah. No, you don't want to be in that spot.
I feel like we're getting really good pieces of wisdom as young 30-year-olds from Brian Teach here.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I've screwed up a lot.
Hossie just said, what's a young 30-year-old?
Listen, I'm a young 45-year-old.
That's right.
So screw you guys. Who's this Hossie kid?
Yeah, you'll see him tonight. Don't worry. We'll point him out.
All right. We'll see if he wants to arm wrestle.
You heard that, Hossie.
I'll prove it to him.
That's hilarious.
No, you bring up a good point, man. Is you once you've run into so many problems and you've figured out the wrong decision on all these situations, you run into one that's similar. And you're like, man, I at least have an idea on how to handle it. So
or you know where to go to get the answer, right? Like,
there's.
I think the older we get, like, you get more comfortable with, like, hey, you know what? I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask somebody who does.
Do you have go-to people?
Absolutely. You know what I mean? And I think part of that, of growing older and, like, removing yourself from, we all always say, like, you're the sum of your 5 closest friends. That doesn't mean you got to get rid of your friends. You know what I mean? That doesn't mean that you just abandon people that, you love and you've known for years and years and years. But man, maybe the people that you go to for advice can't be those people anymore. You know what I mean? Because they have a certain mindset. They're in a certain position. And if that position isn't where you want to go, it may not be the people that you want to. If you, somebody has a horrible relationship, guess who not to go to for relationship advice? Like, the person that's always complaining about their significant other, like, I don't want to ask you.
No.
Like, I already know where you're at. So I'm likely going to get feedback that is more based on your relationship, not based on mine. And that's not where I want to be.
Going to lead you closer to where they're at.
Right.
Yeah. That's I had someone ask me a while ago if I had any mentors, and my answer was I didn't even necessarily think about it until they asked me this question. It was like, man, I've got a ton, and it just depends on what the question or what the problem I'm dealing with is, and I'm going to different people depending on what that is. And I feel like that's been one of the most fun parts. Is and I even made a post about this one time. Like, man, I really don't make a ton of decisions. It probably looks like I do, but I'm actually just going to individual people based on what the problem is and picking the right person. I'm like, they're going to have a good answer for this, and we're going to go with that, or at least get some input and help sway the decision. So it looks like I'm making this awesome decision when really I'm just taking credit for someone else that I'm not naming. So.
That's right.
And that's how Triad was built.
I'm actually an idiot.
Ryan just nodded.
No, he said I was the most intelligent person. So I think he's like the smartest guy out there.
Yeah.
What did Anthony say on his video?
I'm his hero. Yep.
Yeah. You didn't edit that?
Not Anthony, no.
I think it's a good point though, Kevin. I mean, like when you talk about it, like when people ask me mentors, it's like, you know, like you're a mentor to me. And I feel like at times I've potentially been a mentor to you. And it's like, but that happens all the time. It depends on the situation. Depends on Anthony's a big one. Like I lean on Anthony a lot whenever I have like, especially dealing with certain people or certain situations. It's like, Anthony, please mentor me on like how to deal with this. And like, I think that that's such a cool thing too, because especially as I surround myself with more and more people that I definitely consider to be successful. One of the things that, you know, I feel like is a negative connotation that gets attached to that group that's not true is that they're super prideful people that don't look to others for help, or like that they're just very, like they feel like they're very much always right. And like the more and more I actually get involved with people who have real success in their life, the more they're like, oh man, I'm just like, thank God for my 5 closest people that I ask questions to because they've saved me a million times, you know? And so that's a cool thing to just continue to hear over and over again is it's like, no, like you have a better chance of being more successful the more you lean on people who can help you in a situation, as opposed to, you know, just feeling like you've got all the answers. It's like just continuing down that path has been over and over again displayed to me as like, no, that's the best model to go down. And that's something that I think is super cool that we do, like not just you and me, but like as a company, we do all the time. We're always, you know, we make a lot of decisions together, especially as in the management group. Like we all lean on each other a ton when it comes to making decisions. Everyone is involved one way or another. And it's like, you know, we come to a compromise, we come to a thing that everybody's like super happy about and hangs their hat on. And maybe there's a day where that doesn't totally make sense, but I don't think that we'll ever get away from like a conglomerate or a small group of people aiding in these kind of situations that are like, no, this is what I think we should do to handle XYZ situation.
No, that is interesting. It is a lot of times a two-way street on that too. It's not, you know, this tree that branches out. It's two-way streets almost all the way. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Teach, who would you say are people that you tend to lean on for advice?
Oh, it depends on where, on what the subject is, but you know, I mean, Sal is huge proponent in my life as far as like figuring out like which direction I need to go. I think it's really boils down to the folks in your life that are going to tell you the truth. You know what? When you're being an idiot, like they're not afraid to tell you, like, hey, you know what? You're being an idiot.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Sal,
hey, you remember when you did that last time? Like, how'd that work out? You know what I mean? And,
Sal doesn't sugarcoat things.
no.
What?
No.
That's not the Sal Priscilla I know.
Yeah. I got a roommate from college that is very good at that. One of the guys that I used to bounce with is fantastic at it. You know, just like his overall life experiences from, you know, being in that bar world for so long. Like he's seen a lot of things in that nature. Another guy, David Maller down in Louisiana, you know, who's been always upside down, left, right, whatever, you know, and has a very successful business at this point. So having conversations with him and hearing, you know, what he does, it's everything, man.
Yeah.
What business is that?
What's his business?
Yeah.
His business. He actually mows grass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Owns
Absolutely incredible story.
Okay. Like a whole like lawn care company or?
Yeah. Like mows hundreds of thousands of acres of government property.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Yeah, it's very, he does okay.
Yeah. Those government contracts I've heard are pretty good.
Yeah. I'm sure so. Yeah.
But literally came from nothing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? One lawnmower and, you know, here
That's
he is,
amazing.
you know,
That's
just
really cool.
cool to see.
Yeah.
That's
And-
cool.
I think
Understanding, you know, where those guys came from, the struggles that they've had, is huge.
Yeah. I think people at times like, because it's not always like the most fun thing, but like, you know, a couple of things, like one of the things that Kevin and I have always like talked about, especially when it comes to business or friendship or whatever, is it's like like we'll always be honest with each other, you know, and it's like, I think that's paid dividends for me in the company, and like, you know, like be honest with me, like, you know, tell me what's going on, you know, and it's like, you know, and we know each other well enough to communicate it in the way that it's going to be comprehended and it's going to fall on, you know, listening ears. But it's like, that's been something that's like, I know has been really beneficial for us. But it's like, even other people that I look to in my life that I consider to be like mentors or people who like I look to advice, where it's like, I've got a buddy, his name's James. A lot of people around here know James. He's one of my best friends, but he's the one who, you know, he looks at me and he's like, Thomas, he's like, you know, he's like, what are you weighing now? And I'm like, about 270. And he goes like, oh man, yeah.
You sure?
Yeah. And he goes, 270? And he goes, how long you think you got? And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, you're 6'4", 270. Those guys don't live a long time. You doing anything about it? And I'm like, you motherfucker. Like, and you know what? But it was like the next day, there I was changing into like because, you know, you get through that, like, man, you're in your 20s and you start to get in your 30s and you've got these goals. And then it was that one conversation with him that switched my whole like workout, nutrition, everything dynamic to longevity. I was like, nope, you know what? You're right. I need to. I started checking my blood pressure every day. I started doing these things that like I wasn't doing. And it was like that one conversation has the potential to, you know, add 15 years onto my life, because I was, you know, and it was somebody who I respect and like know that he's telling me straight. And it's like, but having those kind of people in your life is such an important thing. And the more, and it's tough sometimes, like, you know, that's not what you always want to hear, but it's like, if you know that, and this is, you know, something I've said about us a lot, is that like, we've known each other a lot and we've been through enough things that we know that we have zero malice towards each other. I would never tell you something unless I thought it was better for you. Like that I'm just trying to, whether it's with the company or with your life or with your relationship or whatever, I am just trying to give you my advice so that I can help. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, having those kind of people and their ability to kind of, you know, steer you straight is like such an important thing, because like you start getting those people out of your life because maybe it's a little uncomfortable at times. It's like, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, mm-hmm. Right. When I think any relationship's good, like, you know, I'm freshly engaged, you know,
congratulations.
Yeah, congrats on that, by the way.
Yeah. Thank you. She's amazing. But one of the things that like we're pretty good about doing to each other is telling each other the truth, no matter what it is. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And whether it's going to dinner with a certain group of people and like, you know, I don't really want to, I just want you to know, like, I'm going to participate. I don't really want to go do this. You know what I mean? But that's okay, because if you don't speak those things and you just wear it like a red badge of courage, or like you're some sort of martyr or something like that, just builds over time, man. Yeah. It's easier to just be honest all the time and just, you know what I mean? That doesn't mean that I'm going to go to dinner and be an asshole. Right. You know what I mean? It just means that, hey, you know, just like, what, and not because you don't like those, it doesn't, like, the reason that you don't want to go, that doesn't matter. Like, you just be tired. Maybe it's a long day at work. Like, I don't really want to go do this right now. I'm going to do it for you. Right. You know what I mean? That's that puts a different perspective on it. And now they know that you're doing it for them instead of you feeling like you're dragging yourself through the mud, because you know what I mean? It's way better, and it feels better. Then it automatically almost lifts the problem from the scenario, because you're like, all right, told you the truth. Like, I feel better about it. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't want to go. I don't have to act like I'm, you know, the Walking Dead here.
I think that's an important aspect of that, though, of like, hey, I'm going to go and I'm going to be nice. Is I think I learned that lesson around when Chad and Vincent were around, the original partners. Is, you know, I learned what it took to have good customer service and just always keep a smile and be as nice as possible and take those, and never come across as angry towards a customer. But on the back end, I felt like I needed to be as honest as possible with my partners. And if I wasn't, then that could hinder us. But I felt, I finally realized that being honest, but without, putting it in a nice way sometimes can lead to some conflict. And it definitely hindered the company, because there would be times where it's like, I'm being honest, but it's like, I'm also kind of bringing it up in an asshole way. Yeah, so I'm not taking the steps to make sure that I'm bringing this up in the best way possible. That's a lesson that I've learned, and I still learn sometimes and make those mistakes, but I've definitely realized the importance of like being honest, but still doing the best that I can to keep everything even keel and everybody in a positive attitude.
Right. Mm-hmm. Well, I think a lot of times like that emotion that comes out, right, is really a mirror, right? Like probably the reason you're better at it now is because you've grown as a person, and you're not necessarily projecting your feelings onto that scenario where you're being a little bit more level-headed about how it comes across. And, you know, a lot of times when people lash out, right, like that's really, they're lashing out at themselves, right? It's the way that they personally feel about themselves, about a certain scenario, about a certain situation, about whatever. Doesn't necessarily, it's not really the person that's eating it's fault, right? But it's coming across like it is, right? Like it's just a scenario that they're really probably sort of disappointed in themselves in some way, shape, or form, or they're not happy with the point that they're at, and it's coming out negatively.
They can't physically yell at themselves. So
right. It's a little tougher. I mean, you can. Sometimes you have to.
Maybe
right?
I should try that.
Look in that mirror and have a real stiff conversation with yourself.
Kevin, go ahead and look in the reflection over there. Let's practice. But back to, I think that all just kind of like brings full circle to what you were saying earlier, is that like that other C word, like communication and comprehension. Like, like sometimes comprehension comes in the form of you or myself or just somebody in general of like doing this in a way that's not going to fall on deaf ears because of how I'm presenting it. If I just blurt this out to you, you might not listen to me, right? And then there's no comprehension there because I failed because I brought this to you in this direction. But it's like he's talking about of like, you know, if you can bring it up in that friendly manner, you can bring it up in a way that like shows that like you care and you're trying to just do this for the company and like whatever, then the comprehension can come and then success can come. Like you can actually build something from it, but it's all like so much in how you deliver it and how same thing like you're talking about with the fiance, like you're giving her the communication in the way of like, I'm doing this because I love you and I will go and do this with you, but like, no, I don't really want to. Right. Like, and it's like, okay,
listen, we got married on a cruise boat. Like I didn't want to get married on a boat. I've never been on a boat in my whole life. Like, but I wanted to get married on New Year's, and I wanted our mothers to be there. And, you know, so 2 of my boxes are checked, and the third box just happens to be that we were on a boat. You know? I mean, it's okay. Like I'll figure it out. Like I'll find a cool spot on the boat that would be somewhere that we wouldn't do this naturally anyways. And, you know, it's like, do I love that idea? No, not really, but it works.
Right.
I realized with when Alyssa and I got engaged, and we dated for longer.
Too long. I busted your balls about that.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
A couple of times, I think.
This was a sample triad a couple of years ago. So
it was sitting in industry. We're at these 2 long tables.
Thomas is buying shots, getting me drunk. You and Sean gang up on me. I finally I had a conversation in the mirror with myself, and I realized, you know, that this is something that I did truly want, and I wanted to be with Alyssa long term, and that was my ultimate goal. Was just I want to be with Alyssa for the rest of my life, and that's you know, it's simple for me, but the wedding and the marriage and everything itself was partially for me, but a lot for Alyssa.
Sure.
It was what I kind of, and it's like, if I can do something that would make her happy, the person that I do want to spend the rest of my life with, then I want to do it even more.
100%.
Was the realization that I came to. So, Wait a second on that helicopter.
That's right.
This cigar's getting really, really good about halfway through too.
That's what I think. As it burns further down, it gets better.
Yeah.
The El Trago with a little bit of ice, just a little watered down. It's so smooth.
Yeah, this is a delightful combination for sure. I'm very much enjoying that.
The combo is very good too. Did you pick the cigar based off of the El Trago?
No, I
didn't. You could have taken credit because it's great.
Not a bad mix.
No, it's a great mix. It's a super solid one.
To rewind back to what Thomas was covering before, I think, you know, for me, when I found out my last bodybuilding show was when my ex-wife was pregnant with her, and I had heard Dorian Yates tell a story about talking to a guy, and he said that he was speaking to a guy in the gym, and the gym was like, "So how long are you going to be like that?" And he's like, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Well, have you ever heard anybody say, 'See that big guy over there?'" And Dorian's like, "No, nobody ever says that." And the guy's like, "Yeah, it's because they're all dead."
Yeah,
you know. So it's one of those things. Like for me, like in the bodybuilding space, like it was time to figure out, like, okay, what do? I got a newborn on the way. bodybuilding's probably not necessarily my best choice for longevity in this world, especially, for where I was and what it would take to continue in that path. It was time to just figure out, all right, let's figure out some different things to do to live longer, not die sooner. And, it's not necessarily fun, right? Because it's like, I'm sure you enjoy being a larger, like, that's one of the things that, like, as guys, like, we like to
absolutely
being big
and
cool.
a defining thing of my last 10 to 12 years.
That's right.
Like, super huge part of who I am.
Yeah. And then you get to deal with, as you start losing weight, you get to deal with everybody saying, what's going on? Something happened? Are you sick?
Right.
Or whatever else. But, like having that realization that it's time, like, all right, so figuring out where the truth comes from, whether it's from a friend or, sometimes you got to hear the truth from somebody who's not necessarily attached to you.
Right. Sure.
To like put the pieces together.
Yeah. Dorian's a really cool one to keep up with, and watching looking at his lifestyle these days is really cool. And,
it's
his
cool to
transition.
see, right?
Yeah.
No.
Like following him.
Yeah.
Cause it's a totally different deal, right? Like you spend so much time, and it was like, and I think one of the realizations that I kind of came to too, and I guess like, I'm blessed in this sense where it was like, I just kind of thought about it where I almost just felt like I'd always just kind of continued with the status quo when it came with a lot of that stuff, because it was like, I came to the realization that it's like, man, I've been as big as I've ever really wanted to be. I've been as strong as I've ever really wanted to be. Like if I were to be slightly stronger or bigger than either of those things that I've achieved, like, would I think it was cool? Like, marginally. And it's like, not enough, not equivalent to the work it would take. Right. And it's like, okay, well, now I'm treading water. Now I'm sitting in this position of like, I'm not really heading in any kind of single direction. And it's like, I found for myself that it's like, and I think this is probably a common thing on this, chairs we're sitting on, is that like, if I don't have some kind of a goal, I will easily fall into the tread water situation. And so it's like, okay, cool. Now I need to start deciding what that looks like. And I need to start getting an idea of what that looks like and having attainable things that I can do, like, and as silly as it is, but checking my blood pressure regularly and like watching where that goes. And you see all the differences that's made in my life at different times where it's like, I'm a little less addicted to energy drinks and like all of these things that kind of come along with that. But it's really interesting how like one 30-second conversation of my friend just being candid with me. And it was like, now it's changed so many elements of my life and completely switched my goals around to, being more, especially because my dad passed away from a heart attack in his young 60s. And it's like, these are like, that's around the corner. Like if I'm pretending like that's not around the corner, it's just like anything else. It's like, preventing is a whole lot easier than making up ground when it comes to anything. And it's like, okay, cool. We're in a spot right now where we're not perfect, but we're not bad. And it's like, but what do these railroad tracks end at? Where am I headed if I continue down this path? And it's like, nope, it's time to change that and, be in my preventative stage of life. And I'm fine with that, but it is a difference for sure.
Oh, it's hugely different. Like even for me lifting now, like it's so hard to not chase weight and want to be stronger, lift heavier weight. But at the same time, when I get hurt and then I can't train for a period of time, like it completely throws you off kilt.
Right.
Right. So it's like, all right, how do I train more efficiently, effectively for where I'm at right now so that I can keep training for a long period of time and still look and feel the way I want to feel.
Right.
And that it's difficult, right? But if you don't ever change it, if you don't ever try a different method or mode of action, like you're going to get stuck.
Yeah.
And stuck sucks.
Yeah.
I know. I've been stuck for a long time. in periods of time, decade.
Yeah.
Periods of time. My 30s sucked. And don't get stuck.
Yeah.
Do you find other aspects of your life to set and achieve goals, or like how did you break past that?
Yeah, for sure. You have to, I think, have an ultimate destination, and then you have to set like smaller goals along the way that are going to help fulfill that scenario. And you don't. I guess it would be great if you absolutely checked every single one of those boxes. You don't necessarily. You just need to be working toward them. And have it as a potential, and understand that you can get there. Would I love to run a sub 2 hour half marathon? Absolutely. Last one I ran was, I think slightly over 2. I think it was about 2:06. So 2 hours, 6 minutes. Now where am I going to find 30 seconds on a mile? You know, could I get there? Yeah, I think I can get there. Am I going to force myself into a scenario to absolutely achieve that goal? No, but it is still a goal of mine.
Mhm.
I still want to, I like running on a pretty regular basis. I think I just committed to another half marathon.
Think you did?
F me. I don't know if we can.
Yeah, cuts away.
Yeah, fuck me. Which that no longer scares me, right? Because I've done enough of them. The first one I was terrified of, but the goal of running a sub 2 hour, it's fun, right? Like it adds a little extra. Maybe I don't ever get it. Maybe I run 2:03 and I sniff it, but that's still like, I'm still moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Right. Well, guys, we're hitting close to that 2 hour mark. It goes by quick.
How about that?
Yeah, it goes by real quick. Ryan's got to get going here in about 15 minutes. So we got to unfortunately wrap up because this was a blast.
This was a fun one.
Yeah. I mean, first and foremost, man, thank you for, coming on and doing this and obviously bringing stuff to kind of enjoy with us. And man, you were great. You had a ton of like really cool perspectives on things and a lot of really good information and advice. And just, it's great talking to you, man. I know we look at you obviously as somebody that, triad, and we work with you a lot in a lot of different capacities.
Look at how Teach screwed that up. Don't do that.
But one of the biggest things, man, and I know we can all attest to this, is that we just view you as a friend also. And so it's really great getting to see you. Wish we could see you more kind of thing. And but it's always great having you down and around. And it's great having you today and on here. And this is a blast, man.
Yeah, I think anybody who knows me well enough knows that by nature, I'm not a salesman, right? Like the only reason I'm halfway decent at what I do is because of relationships and being able to see companies like yours do what you guys are doing, and hopefully being a little piece of that puzzle is what makes it helps me go to sleep at night, right? And it gets me out of bed in the morning. Like that's the two things that I would not like my job if it was just sales and blah, like that would suck.
Man, one of my favorite parts is when you give us a call every once in a while and you just check in, and I've started to get excited.
How many Loopty fruit you need?
Have
I ever asked you?
I was almost confused when you asked that because I'm like, what are you talking about? Oh yeah, no, you've never asked anything close to that. So when you call and you check in and how we're doing, and I get to update, I update you on what things are going on, and you're genuinely excited for us. Is like I start to, it's like, Teach is calling. I get to tell him what we're doing. He's gonna be pumped for us. So it's those calls are mean a lot, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Listen, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for doing what you guys do.
No,
thank you. We're again, thank you for making the trip and being part of the Yukon grand opening. That store's off to a very, 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 very fantastic start. And man, it's you guys do play a big role in that.
Right? Well, Thomas manages it, right? It's true.
Again, I think we can all just thank Anthony for everything that's happened.
Yeah, Thomas manages it, and somehow it's still doing great. So.
Incredible feat, honestly. Way to go, Will and Kaylin.
Well, yeah, but thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you for making the trip and being out here for our events and supporting in any way that you can, man. It's really cool to just have you involved, but everything you do is genuinely appreciated. So
thank you guys,
and thank you for the El Trago and the cigars. So.
Yeah, this has been great.
Yeah,
so
perfect.
Thank you, everybody, for listening, and everybody who we've gotten a lot, especially recently. I feel like I've had more and more people kind of stop me and talk to me about listening and telling us how much they enjoy the podcast. And so it's great. We love hearing your feedback, and everybody has been super positive and awesome. And, I know we're talking about people being like super candid with us and stuff, but don't do that about the podcast, please. But we love you guys for listening. We appreciate you. This was episode 13, which is quick. Crazy.
Note, we didn't check numbers on how our views were doing, and I just since like the first couple that we did, and I just anticipated people stopped listening, and we were just doing this for fun, and I was like, let's keep it going.
Yeah, right.
Turns out we're gaining in views though.
Yeah.
So
hey, Ryan is actually posting these.
Yeah,
it's good. So all right, thank you guys.
Thank you for listening, guys.
Thanks, guys.